Welcome to Group Dates and Hot Takes. I'm Sampy.
I'm Christy.
Let's talk about Married at First Sight. It is day 20 of marriage. These marriages are going so well, aren't they, Christy?
I mean, no issues at all.
No issues. Well, what couple would you like to start with today? This may be the longest episode of all time. This was so jam-packed full of fun stuff.
Let's do Stasha and Nate.
Oh wow, we're really heading in there, huh?
I mean, everybody has something wrong, some issue.
Oh no. Well, what do you want to say about these lovely people?
Well, we started with this conversation of them in the pool where she asked about the whole love scale, falling in love, that sort of thing. And for some reason, Nate, instead of just being like, oh, I like you or I'm getting towards love, decides to insert a number scale, which is never a good idea.
Well, I think, didn't she kind of prompted that, though, because she was like, where are you, right?
Yeah,
or
but
am I crazy?
Well, the scale she asked about, I thought was words, not, I don't know, I could be remembering it wrong, but it seemed like Nate volunteered I'm at a 4 out of 10.
Well, to be fair, he did say 4 or 5. He's sort of getting towards the middle. So did this get prompted by the gift all of them received of the card with the questions, or was this just on their own?
I think that was that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, they like being in the pool, but yeah, man. When he said that, her face.
I mean, you just don't say 4 out of 10. That's going to lead to all kinds of problems.
I mean, we're only 3 weeks into this process. So
that's why he shouldn't have done the numbers. He just sort of said, I like you.
Look, we've been over this, okay? Nate isn't the best at expressing his feelings, okay? But yeah, she definitely did feel hurt by this because she's at an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
And so it stings a little bit. It stings a little bit to hear.
Even him saying there's more room for upside potential doesn't make that better.
Not really. No, not really.
And then she sort of gave him an ultimatum saying she needs to hear love by decision day.
Yeah, did you find that to be weird too? Because she got all, I don't know how to describe it. It was very strange to see because she's like, I'm not gonna say oh, you need to say I love you by decision day or I'm out, but kinda she went back and forth. It was very, very weird to me.
I think basically it is an ultimatum, but she was trying to make it seem like it wasn't, even though it is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a little bit too much of playing a game here, which I don't find to be helpful personally.
No.
Well, what else you got?
Well, Nate also, I think it was this same pool conversation, talked about how he's dating a girl for 2 years but never loved her, which then makes Stasha afraid that the same thing will happen to them.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of a valid concern.
Also, it seems like a lot of these guys have said at one point or another that they've never been in love. Mitch said that this episode even. Mitch said that
think Binh said that too.
Nate said that. Binh said that this episode as well. Who else do we even have? I mean, Miguel has definitely been in love. Okay, we know that. Who's the last person? Oh, Justin. Yeah, Justin's definitely been in love. So I guess it's 3 out of the 5 that apparently haven't been. Just a little interesting, perhaps. But yeah, where else can we move to their fight? Their fight over dinner.
Yeah, the cooking class, I think.
Well, we before even we actually had a lot of cooking from them this episode because they were cooking their own dinner and it had a fight, and then they also had a fight later at a cooking class.
Oh, I guess at their apartment when she was like trying to draw out. She spends a lot of time like trying to pull stuff out of him. Mm-hmm. Which is frustrating for both of them.
Right, because he doesn't really know how to talk about or share his feelings, be super vulnerable, at least that we've seen. You know, there's a lot going on. Maybe he's a little bit better about it, not on camera, but I suspect, given everything that's gone down, that isn't true. But yeah, I thought that maybe it was a bit far, his response, because basically his response to her trying to squeeze stuff out of him again was to essentially accuse her of trying to manipulate him, which I don't know about you, but if somebody was like, I feel like you're trying to manipulate me, I might get a little defensive.
Yeah, I think manipulate was the wrong word. I feel like you should have used like, you're just digging, you're fishing or something like that. Because I feel like from his perspective, he's just like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Yeah, he's not at love yet, but yet she is still like looking for something.
Yeah, I think that he's just equating her in a lot of ways to the ex that he talks about, and that's probably why he feels like it's manipulation, because they do well, first of all, after he basically accuses her of trying to pull his strings, she's like, that's hurtful. Which, very true. Mm-hmm. How dare you, Nate, be so mean. But yeah, so then we have the cooking date, which is I don't know why they're just like, oh, we're gonna cook dinner and then we're gonna go on a cooking date.
It seems like there's always a cooking class date.
Which, look, I think that would be super fun personally.
But it usually ends in disaster. It did last season.
Well, it kind of did this season as well, because they had all the actual cooking portion of it, and then they get to sit down by themselves and have a lovely conversation about their fight.
Yes, Brad is basically rehashing the same thing over again. He didn't like that she was playing games or playing devil's advocate for too long. That's an interesting phrase. And then also that she is coming from a darker place. So that did not go over well. You can just see her facial expression just like hardening as he is with each thing that he says. Mm-hmm. And he talked about how his ex would give him ultimatums. So I guess that's kind of triggering for him.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think he just, in his mind, he draws a lot of parallels between her like trying to force this stuff out of him and like the I love you by decision day, all of that stuff. And it's like, oh, well, this feels very similar to my toxic ex who would tell me, oh, you have to do this or else I'm going to leave you.
Yeah, I also just, like, she wants him to say these things, but, like, if he says it just to like fulfill her requirements. How is that satisfying or meaningful to her if it's not genuine coming from him?
I mean, I think she is just someone, and aren't we all? But I feel like maybe more than average. I think that she has a lot of baggage, and that gets put on him, whether he deserves it or not. Because look, we've been skeptical of Nate this entire season.
Yeah.
from the very beginning, and the
haven't forgotten the stripper club incident.
we have not forgotten the stripper gyrating upon him at the bachelor party, right? But I know I was kind of seeing parallels between this situation and Morgan's situation, where it's like you have somebody who's gone through this undeniably traumatic thing and things. Like, I think that Stasha has a lot of insecurity around relationship stuff as someone who's, like, in particular, I think as a woman who's a bit older, and so you kind of get all this cultural messaging from that perspective of like, well, you're really only worth a lot when you're like young and all of this stuff, and like, oh well, you've reached this point of age and you haven't found someone. Wow, there must be something wrong with you. Like all of that stuff, and all of the stuff from her father leaving them, and like she just has all of this trauma, and I think in a lot of ways she hasn't totally figured out how to really deal with that. And so I think some of that does come through in her interactions with him, because she's like, I need this stuff because I'm feeling in this way. And as great as it would be for him to be on the same page and like, man, I'm at a 9-2 and like all of this different stuff, I think that it's maybe not realistic for him to be on that page. Like, it would be great, but we're 3 weeks in. And so a lot of her insecurity comes to the forefront.
Yeah, do you think it's like unrealistic for her to expect him to already love her after 20 days?
Christy. I love that you're asking me this, because I wrote in my notes to specifically ask you about that. Essentially, does Nate have a point and a leg to stand on in all of this? Because I think that we do. It's a weird world we're in, because it's very easy to get invested and wrapped up in the world of the show. And so I keep having to ask myself, I'm like, wait, like, is this reasonable for the show? But is this reasonable for real life? Like, and how do we even think in terms of all of that? Because to your point, I think in the real world, it's not reasonable to expect him to be at that point after 3 weeks.
Yeah, like love takes time sometimes.
Right. I mean, I think in the context of the show, you can maybe argue like, well, is he not at that point because he's not committed to the process, or like yada yada, like all that stuff. But I do think that it's perhaps a bit unreasonable to expect all of this stuff of him so soon, particularly when, and sorry, I'm going to tangent a little bit here, but I think that there may also be just a difference in love languages here, because he seems like he's trying to show that he's like with this process by doing things, and she needs to hear those words from him. She needs to and saying those words like I love you, but just the relationship words in general, and the vulnerability words and like all of that stuff. And that's not really how he's wired, or at least it's not how he's like the place he's found himself in life. And that's kind of why I think he was talking about going to therapy, and hopefully he does actually follow through with that and do that. But yeah, I don't think that it's necessarily totally justified her view of this situation, even though I do feel for her. It's just, I don't know, like, do you want to talk about the main section with all the couples and then talk about the therapy session as a whole, or do you want to just talk about these people's individual portions of it?
We can add what they did with the therapist.
Okay, because all of this really ties into that. And so if you weren't aware, which I don't know why you wouldn't be if you're listening to this podcast, but they had everyone got to gather together for a fun trauma group date.
Those are always my favorite ones.
Where
together.
Yeah, they brought in
Dr. Pia.
Yeah, Dr. Pia, which is this just a one-off thing, or is she becoming an actual expert?
I don't know. I know they said they brought in 2 experts for this season, but I don't know like how much she'll be here.
Okay.
Or not.
Because I mean, I didn't think that this was. I mean, it shouldn't have been in a group setting, in my opinion.
Well, no.
But I did think that elements of it were actually could be objectively useful.
Yeah, she seemed like she knew what she was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the emotion wheel she had, I thought was actually an interesting and potentially helpful tool, because a lot of people, even a lot of people on this season, probably don't really understand their emotional landscape. So many people don't have the words to verbalize what is happening to them or how they're feeling. And so having a tool where you can look at it and be like, okay, so yeah, that's actually a good word for what I'm going through right now. I was actually pleasantly surprised. Now, being in a group session where everyone would just get destroyed emotionally in front of everyone, maybe not quite so fun. But the whole thing here, man.
Well, she did articulate.
Yeah, she articulated
that she felt lonely, vulnerable, isolated, abandoned, and sad.
Oh, that was a doozy of a list. Oh,
yeah, she feels like Nate isn't matching her.
Right, which kind of goes back to my point of it just feels like she is like this isn't his fault, essentially. Like, I think that these words she used, I think she was feeling those words before Married at First Sight. Like, I just think that is where she is, just generally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and even Nate saying that, like, oh, I'm doing these actionable steps, like therapy, moving in with her in the future, he feels like that still isn't good enough for her. She doesn't think he's making an effort. So it's like they're just I don't know, they view what love is differently, like in terms of how you show it.
Right.
So then they're both frustrated because they each think they're doing enough for the right thing, but it's not landing with the other person.
This would be a great time for the experts to step in.
Well, they have one there.
Yeah, but I mean, like, privately.
Well, yes. There should have been, I mean, maybe there was and they just didn't show it, but there should have been, like, individual segments with Dr. Pia after this.
Yeah, because they maybe could have actually reached some closure here. Because, yeah, I don't know. I remain skeptical of Nate, but, like, I don't want any of these couples to fail. It seems like for them, they're stuck in this loop of both of them are wanting to be loved, and they're wanting to be secure in this relationship, and neither of them know how to put that out there in a way that the other can receive.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Which is tough, because then you get to the point where Nate's just like, well,
why am I trying?
Why am I even? Yeah, why?
Yeah,
am I
he
even
said he
trying?
would start giving up if she doesn't believe him when he says stuff.
Yeah, which obviously, I don't want him to give up, which is understandable.
And then they had like another conversation after the therapy date where he's once again disappointed that she doesn't seem to recognize his effort. And then she was saying, well, all the stuff I said was like how I was feeling so that the therapist would know our background, which I didn't get the impression that was in the past. I got the impression that she still feels this way.
Oh, and he absolutely brought that up.
Yeah.
How she was using present tense.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Words,
You
yeah.
still feel like this.
Yeah. I mean, look, do I blame her that she saw an opportunity to like get some of these emotions out into the open? No, I don't blame her. It's been, and we'll talk about this with another couple of ours here, but I imagine that in a lot of ways, this process is very lonely. Like being on Married at First Sight, I imagine it's just because like how much contact with the outside world do they get to have? Like, are they able to live their lives, or are they kind of sequestered a little bit?
They're not sequestered. They're just filmed all the time.
So it's not so much a prohibition on other people. It's more like, we just don't have time for other people. Is that accurate?
Well, I mean, they still go to work though. So they're not like, it's not like they're locked in the apartment to film all day.
Right. I guess I just mean in terms of like friends and family and like social life sort of things.
It's hard to tell because like a lot of the time they have these group things, so that kind of cuts into time you would normally have spent with friends and family. And they have the like staged on camera friends visits, which to me those aren't real hangouts at all.
No, they're not. Yeah, I just asked that because I see all this going on, and I don't necessarily have the full picture, but it feels very isolating potentially being on the show, and that's not a great place to be when so much is happening in your life. And so I totally get her wanting to like just get some of this stuff off of her chest. But yeah, they really have a lot to figure out. I put in my notes, I get that it feels bad, but also they've been married for 3 weeks, so maybe give him a minute.
Yeah. I mean, she even like acknowledged like, oh, the therapy and moving in, those are future things. I was like, okay, but I thought it seemed like the therapy was going to be like soon, but she wants vulnerability now.
Yeah, and you can't.
It's like, what does that mean?
That's not how vulnerability really works. Like the person has to actually like decide and figure out also, like, it's not that simple. Like, one, they have to decide that they are willing to be vulnerable, but then you also have to figure out how you're going to be vulnerable, because it's not always super straightforward, especially if you have a lot of like prior trauma and stuff, to be like, okay, so how exactly am I going to be vulnerable here? So it is, I don't know, it has been a bit unfair in my opinion for her to just always be like, be vulnerable, come on, you do it, when like.
And she also doesn't really explain what that means either. Like, what does she want? I mean, I know we have the thing about talking about his mom in a different episode, but that can't be it.
I mean, I don't know if she necessarily totally knows what she wants.
Well, that's another problem.
In like the emotional sphere, because that's, I don't know, that I feel like my read of Stasha is that her life in a lot of ways is armor to protect the traumatized and hurt person inside. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if the fact that like her house is perfect and like nobody lives in it, like that seems like, I mean, I know it could be like an OCD type thing, but like that reads to me like armor. The fact that she's like, I'm out here to build generational wealth, and like that's her thing. Like that reads to me as armor. Like there are so many things that she like surrounds herself with that it kind of is like, in a lot of ways those things are great. Like I would love to make over $400,000 a year. that would be real nice. But at the end of the day, it seems like, at least to me, that a lot of that stuff is kind of coping mechanism to kind of protect herself. And so, like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she had a big old Excel spreadsheet that's like, I will have a man say he loves me by this date, and then we will get married on this date, and I will have made $600,000 a year by this date, and like everything planned out. Because I think that she, to some respect at least, is like a hyper planner, hyper productive person, because inside she really hurts a lot. Which is really sad to think about. And I hope she can work through some more of that stuff. And maybe I'm totally wrong, but that's, as someone who has lived a relatively traumatized life himself, that's kind of how I read the situation. Yeah.
Well,
what a sunny couple to start with. Where to next?
Do you want to predict if they stay together or not?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, man.
I don't even know.
Confusion.
I'll still say yes for now.
Yeah, as much as they're just kind of going through the ringer, I'm gonna go yes. I think that maybe they can figure this out.
Yeah.
With a little bit of help. Okay. Should we talk about Alexis and Justin?
Yeah.
This was a pretty light episode in terms of how much they were around. At least
we didn't see a ton from them.
That's what it felt like to me.
I wanted to mention something I learned from After Party last week.
Okay.
That we were wondering, how did Alexis not know about what was happening with the dog?
Mm-hmm.
We learned that she went back to her own place for a bit. We don't know like how many days or whatever, but
right, because of the fight.
Yes.
The initial fight.
I think, yeah, which is then how she didn't know that there was blood in Newton's stool, only eating half of his normal amount.
See, this is what I was talking about last week. I think it was last week, but like they have just been in this very unproductive place, and we'll talk about it because she knows this about herself. That's what's so mind-boggling to me. She knows this about herself, and she just like leans into this and leans into it. And what I'm talking about is how she puts it as she's a track star, meaning she runs away.
Mm-hmm.
Which is counterproductive, to say the least.
In a marriage.
In a marriage, it's just slightly counterproductive. And that's what I'm saying too, is like both of them are contributing a lot to this situation.
This is usually the case in a marriage.
Right, and I think that her running away causes a lot of problems too, because he seems like a pretty insecure person in a lot of ways. Like, he's very bombastic, but I think that's kind of because he's insecure. And so he's like always hoping to get some of that back. So he like puts all that out there because he's like, oh, if I put all this out there, maybe people will get the hint and be like, oh, we should love him and like throw this stuff back. And then Alexis freaks out and she's like, goodbye, I'm out of here. And it all continues the cycle.
You know, every season there's always at least one couple where one person runs back to their old place, sometimes repeatedly. Those couples usually never work out. If you're running back to your old place because you can't even stay in the apartment, it's just not a good sign.
No, and it kind of goes against one of the foundational things of marriage, which is like the whole, for richer, for poorer, for sickness and health, like that marriage is across all circumstances, mm-hmm. all ends of the extreme, all the sunny days and all the crappy days. And yeah, so that's why, and I said this when they had the whole original Newton situation. Like, Alexis made, in my view, and I think I actually referred to it as perhaps the moment we can go back to where like this marriage is over.
Yeah, you did say that.
Which is her decision to just basically say, F you, I'm taking him to the vet myself. And that's kind of repeated itself where stuff happens and she just heads away. Oof.
Yep.
I also,
did you? Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just, this is less important probably. Did you notice those face masks they were wearing?
Uh-huh.
I hated how liquidy it was. It was running down his face.
Yeah, he seemed a little uncomfortable as she was describing how many steps to the beauty routine.
Yeah, there was going to be like another mask and then a lip mask on top of that.
Well, the lip masks? What?
Yeah, I think those are a thing as well.
Why? Do you really need to exfoliate your lips?
Sometimes. It's not just for exfoliation though. It's probably hydration as well.
That's tough. But anyways, yeah, I was I also didn't. What I don't know. I had no idea what they were smoking here. It was.
Yeah, what was that? I'd never seen that contraption before.
I mean, it was kind of reminiscent of like a hookah, I think it's called, which is it's just a different way of smoking. But
Like weed?
I mean, I think you can smoke weed, but it's also just for like regularly smoking. But it looked kind of weird, so I don't know if it was actually like a different device that I'm unfamiliar with.
It's just weird to see that on camera.
I know. I'm a little surprised that they like okayed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they needed some either nicotine or weed to get through this conversation. Apparently.
Is this the conversation where he told her he lost his virginity when he was 20?
Uh-huh.
And got lost in that relationship, I guess, did whatever she wanted.
Yeah, he's definitely a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was very sad to me to hear that essentially he didn't really receive love from people growing up. Like just with his family and relationships, like that's tough.
Yeah.
It explains a lot.
He thinks it's possible to fall out of love, but I think she disagrees with that. I think if you're saying, oh, it's possible to fall out of love, then you never really had true love in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all like definitions and words and blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They're kind of just, and she kind of says as much when she says that she wants to feel the security that she felt on the honeymoon, but it's essentially like they're trying their hardest to get back to the honeymoon. Mm-hmm. Like the honeymoon was the highlight of their marriage, and everything else has been awful.
Yeah, when they came back to reality, boy, did that hit them hard.
Yeah.
They also had the meal on the beach.
Mm-hmm. This is where she was talking about being a track star and all of that.
Yeah. And then this
was hard.
He asked if they were just dating, would she still be with him? And she's like, nah, and stick around. That's brutal.
Oh, that's hard to hear.
I feel like they're doomed.
I also have that feeling. Even though she does say that she's putting in more effort because they're married. Where is this effort? That's my question.
That's so sad. They started off.
I know we were so
well.
we were so optimistic. Like week 2, we were like, they're going to be the only survivors.
And then their pets happened.
That's a lesson for everyone. Be responsible pet owners. Oh, man.
And so then when they were with the therapist, this went off the rails, like in a big way. Because Justin is talking about how vulnerable he is, and then Alexis does her thing where she's just mouthing words off to the side, and she's like, no, you're not. Like in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And then like the therapist like tries to like interject and say something useful, and Justin cuts her off and says, let me stop you right there, and then continues on. It was a lot.
Yeah, he has a hard time knowing when not to speak.
Yes, and he even says, like, you don't really know me. She won't understand even if I break it down like a third grader.
Yeah, I was a little confused because it seemed like he was saying that like because and this is again they get stuck in this loop just like all these other couples, but like he gets super frustrated because he feels like she doesn't understand him. She gets super frustrated because she feels like he doesn't understand her. It was a little that was a little rude and condescending in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. More than just a little.
Because like That's like third grader's like 8 years old or something like that.
I know, and
Like,
he's like, yeah, I'll say it 3 different times and you still don't get it. Implying that she's dumb, she can't comprehend whatever
maybe you
he's
just
saying.
need to upgrade your communication skills.
Perhaps. So then Dr. Pia says, keep talking until you're understood, which I thought was good.
Yeah, good luck with that. I also loved how he was going on this whole rant, and everyone else is just standing there like shaking their heads.
I
like,
know, cringing.
Oh boy, did we really have to be here for this?
Oh man, yeah. Alexis doesn't. Justin did say that on After Party. Alexis doesn't fake it. She will just spill if things aren't going right.
Yeah, I don't know. I used to like Alexis more than I do now.
Yeah, I think for me, they're a no.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with no now. They really
Have turned it around.
And speaking of After Party, oh man, at the end of After Party, because they sometimes bring in a guest who hosts a Married at First Sight podcast. So they brought in a lady. I have no idea who she is, but so it was Justin and Kristen, right?
Well, which After Party?
This one. This most
it
recent
was
one.
Justin and Stasha.
Oh, you're okay. Sorry, losing my mind. Anyways, my whole point is, before I lost my mind, was that at the end, the podcast lady was asked how she felt about their chances, similarly to what we do here, and she's like, "Oh, I think that Stasha and Nate can work it out." And it's like, how about Justin and Alexis? And she like, because she was sitting next to Justin, she like leads over, like pats him out. She's like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know about you guys."
And then Justin was like feigning like surprised and just like, "You need to watch the episodes."
That was pretty funny. Anything else?
No.
Who do you want to talk about next?
You, Mitch and Kristen.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Man, just when we're starting to like him more.
No, I left that train a while ago.
Okay, see, I've been going up and down. I've been riding this roller coaster.
There was like 1 week where he seemed better, but then it was all downhill from there.
Okay, well, let the record show that Christy never gave Mitch a chance.
No. We start off with Luna humping a rug.
They're just like, they're making dinner and pan over to the dog, just going to town on this like pillow. Why?
It's very funny.
Dogs are so weird.
Especially that one.
That pug should never reproduce. Let me just say that.
So we learn Mitch has a new position at work.
Which is also just, I don't know. His work is a very nebulous thing.
Yes, I don't understand what he does.
It seems like, from the very vague things he said, it's maybe some sort of like, it's like environmental policy, perhaps, because he was talking about like politics and stuff.
Yeah, and he's also training his heir.
Which is really weird.
I know, it's a weird way of saying
that. Just say it like the person taking my position.
Yes, or his replacement. This is not a throne crown sort of thing.
He that's part of things for me, is that like he's just so awkward. And especially like this, I'll bring this up now. Like, part of what gets me is that he's not stupid, okay? Contrary to what, like, the internet really, they go to town on him, all right? He's known across the world as Mitch the Bitch, for example. But, like, he's not stupid. And so that's what gets me, is he chooses to live like this because he, like, does something and he knows it was like out of line or whatever, and he has that stupid little grin he gets when he knows, he's like, yeah, like normal people wouldn't like that. Ugh.
I mean, we saw that when I guess he was making some sort of dressing or something, and Kristen is like pouring her heart out about
her soul
about how like the business ventures she wants to do, like flip houses after they have a couple of kids, and Mitch is just like goofing around like.
He's like sprinkling salt into this canister of vinaigrette or something, like
just totally not paying attention to her. And then after all of that speech from her, she's like, or no, Mitch is like, I think that's great.
Yeah, but
actually that's a lie.
But I actually hate that idea.
Yep. And then this set off the whole rest of the episode for them about how the rising housing costs and gentrification conflicts with her dreams. It was this whole long, just frustrating thing.
Kind of just pooping on her parade, really. He's such a wet blanket. And it's not even... it's like he makes this... such a huge, like it's his entire personality essentially, but he's not particularly consistent. It's like, if you really care that much, like why are you not a vegan, for example? Like if you really care about sustainability and all of this, like you should probably be a vegan. It's like, why are you dragging your wife for her dream here? Like, she's not the problem.
No, I mean, later on they talked about like the big like real estate companies that come in and buy up everything. Like, she is one person.
Right, but everybody contributes to the problem.
Ugh. It's so annoying.
Which is just, I don't know, it's just weird to me because like, and maybe I just hate this planet and I hate poor people and I hate the marginalized in our society, but
that's what he made it seem like. She
right,
likes like
exactly, but like she's just gonna be selling it to another family.
Yeah, he like basically lumped her in with like the worst of the housing industry.
Right, he's like, you know what, Kristen, if you do this, you will be, BlackRock or Blackstone Capital that goes in and just pays cash way over asking price for all of these homes, and then they sit empty as U.S. families are on the streets and can't afford anything. It's like, buddy, I think you might be reading into this situation a little bit.
Yeah, she said she doesn't want to live a life of guilt.
Right, which totally makes sense. And she also, she wants to be somebody who, like, I don't know, I guess I don't really have a problem with her vision.
She even said she was, like, hoping to work in some sustainability with it. But he, like, totally just...
Right, because...
passed over that.
Because she's willing to compromise. And she has said before, like, she does agree with him, at least in principle, in a lot of these things. Like, yeah, we need to be sustainable and we need to, take care of things and be responsible in all of this. But, like, there's a way to do that without being Mitch. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna put you on blast here, but this is something Christy said last night, everyone. She specifically said that Mitch is so bad that he actually makes her want to be unsustainable. She wants to be a negative to the environment because of Mitch's behavior. He has given environmentalism and sustainability such a bad name that she is going to go out and buy a Hummer. Not the small,
not a Hummer,
not the small Hummer, but the big one, the big Hummer, and she's gonna go drive it all across the country at 2 miles per gallon as she litters. That is where Christy's at right now.
I just need to get a few extra plastic bags from the grocery store when I shop too.
Oh man, wow, she's really going all out here. But yeah, he has an infinite capacity to ruin things.
He ruins everything. I mean, he even ruined their karaoke night, which seemed like it was going great, aside from his weird rapping.
But she actually liked that, which is even weirder.
She's his wife. She has to.
I don't know. Yeah, because they had this whole tiff there.
Yeah, because he brought up the real estate thing again. Like, he said with her, like, regards to her, like, house flipping, he said it seems predatory. Not like it's illegal, which he immediately was like, hey, I don't like you using the word illegal there, because it isn't.
He probably wishes it was illegal.
Mm-hmm. He said it doesn't sit perfectly with me. How many things in life get to sit perfectly with you?
Not very, very little. Very little.
And she's like, yeah, I want to get the same respect for my dreams. And then it just kept going. He says talk is cheap. Because she tried to talk about how she wants to help with the environment and all that, but still have her dreams, and that didn't go over well with him.
No, I mean, he doesn't interface super well with other people, and definitely they had the whole inauthentic thing as well.
Yeah, told her it feels inauthentic what you're saying, but it doesn't mean you're inauthentic. Okay, now we're just like semantics here, like.
Yeah, this definitely took a turn. I mean, I didn't totally agree with, and I think it was just a defensive thing when she basically told him not to tell her how it feels for him, which is like, I don't know, that's a little unreasonable because you don't get to regulate how somebody else feels, and like if you're married, you kind of do need to know how they feel. But it was probably just, and look, I'm giving Kristen way more grace than I would give any other person because I feel like she's probably the best person on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy. I'm going to launch into something here.
When they were at the beach?
Yes.
They pick up trash.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes, but really what I wanted to bring up was sort of it came up for me out of the karaoke date, which is that for some reason it seems like Mitch has this idea that like suffering for the cause like equates to like righteousness or goodness, that like it's like he sees all of this as like I have to like go without or live so specifically, otherwise I'm like off of the path of good. And the more that I suffer or don't live like other people, the better I am, and the more I'm helping, which just isn't true.
Yeah, he's on a moral high ground. He's also an all or nothing kind of guy.
Right, which that's not life. Life is not all or nothing. You make the best decisions you can, and you live your life hurting as few people as possible. And like there are ways to live your life that are sustainable, that are legitimately doing good. But it's like, why? Like if you really feel this way, like that's what I'm saying, is he's inconsistent. And he like picks these things where it's like, I can like just suffer here and it makes me a good person. But it's like, if this is how you really feel, again, like, why aren't you a vegan? Why do you even allow yourself to say, like you're freaking eating chicken wings in an air-conditioned building at karaoke? Like, why are you doing that? Don't you know, like, how much suffering those chickens go through? Like, and how much, like, how inhumane that whole process is, and, like, how maybe that building's getting powered by solar because it's in California, but it may also be powered by coal. Like, there's these layers, and he just, like, completely picks and chooses what he cares about. Like, why are you using these probably, like, petroleum based, like, surfboards? Like, they're probably made of, they probably have plastics and stuff in them. Like, why are you doing that? Like, if you really, like, it's like this persona, like, I'm surfer dude who cares about the environment, and as admirable as it is to have principles and care, it just doesn't seem like he is consistent, and it just drives everybody away.
Yep. She also, yeah, I agree with all of that. She also, at the beach, kind of, like, stood up for herself and was like, I want you to see my value. Like, don't make untrue generalizations about me, because he kept doing that over and over again.
Right.
You could see her getting really frustrated.
I mean, as I imagine most people want, she wants him to see that she has value.
Yeah, because he keeps pushing down everything she is, basically, in favor of his extremism.
And can I just point out, how many wives would go pick up trash on the beach for their husbands? Yeah. Like, almost zero.
She's, like, trying so hard, and he doesn't deserve it.
And it's like he doesn't see it. He says he sees it, but it's
not registering.
It really isn't registering. Like, he just doesn't. He can't see things for how they are, and he's so wrapped up in how life has to be for him that he's, like, missing this seemingly fantastic person. Which brings us to the last bugaboo for them.
Oh, wait, there was one more thing.
Oh, you want to
she said when they were at the beach. She said she saw the old Mitch creep up, and she wants to put him back down.
She wants to put him down. That was violent language. I don't know if I can get on board with that. That was very violent.
But yes, on to the therapist, or actually before the therapist,
pre-therapist, because they sprinkled this in throughout the episode, because we saw Stasha give one to Nate earlier in the episode, at least, and I think there was maybe one or two others that we saw. So essentially, all of the wives, who I'm sure were told to do this by the producers.
Oh, yes.
Went out and bought, I'm using air quotes because the producer probably just bought them too, but got the same shirt for all of the husbands because they were going to gather for that group session thing. And it'd be, I guess, I was reading stuff online last night, and I guess this is like a current TikTok challenge.
Yes, I have seen this on the internet.
Which is kind of stupid, and I don't know if I've just talked about my disdain for TikTok, but I won't get into that. But I mean, this thing has been like this. This is a pre-TikTok thing, is what I'm trying to say. Like, people have done this.
Yeah.
Before TikTok was even a twinkle in its daddy's eye. But yeah, they all went, oh, what? We're all wearing the same shirt? Ooh, which, like,
it's not even that funny of a thing to start with.
It's silly and whatever. Yeah. But it's just one of those things, like, it's so harmless, and it's something that, as kind of stupid and silly as it is, it can just bring joy, because it's like, oh, whoa, you got us. Like,
not
wow.
for Mitch though.
No, not for Mitch, because Kristen gives him the shirt, and he like comes out of the bathroom not wearing it. And he's like, I gotta be honest with you, like, I'm not gonna wear this.
I just went, oh no, here we go. He's like, this is not something I would wear. He complained about the buttons on it. I mean, I don't know what the issue is.
Mitch doesn't wear buttons, I guess. It's just like weird. Like, why are you going? Like, why do you care so much when, like, we know who you are, Mitch. We've seen you with that like weird crochet pocket on the shirt. Like, we've seen your weird apartment hat. And your hat. Yes, in your apartment. Like, why are you?
He has no leg to stand on here.
Like, and maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm projecting, but like, I feel like most guys are happy to let their wives contribute in that way, because most guys just don't give a crap. And so it's like, oh, you want to like pick out stuff that you think makes me look attractive and makes you more attracted to me. Oh, why would I say no to that? But well, Mitch,
no, she had to like drag him into the bathroom.
Well, they had a whole, like, it was a whole fight.
I know, like, also, I don't know why she bothered to take him into the bathroom when they're still wearing mic packs. Like, we can hear what you're saying.
I don't know. It's like an illusion of privacy, I guess. So they can't see their faces. Maybe I don't know.
She had to like spoil the whole joke. Like, there's gonna be like all the guys are gonna be wearing this, and he still didn't want to. So then like they show up to the like rooftop or whatever, and he is wearing it shockingly.
But only
I was impressed for like 2 seconds.
Until he said, "Don't worry, I'm gonna be taking this off in 2 seconds,"
and immediately and changed.
Like, as soon as it was like, "Oh, the Spider-Man pointing meme," he was like, he changed
into a plain black long sleeve shirt. Said it was materialistic that they all had to wear that shirt.
Dude, learn to like accept a gift. Learn to be part of something. I don't. He also talked about how it's a burden when someone gets you a gift. Like, it says so much about you. What? I don't understand him at all. I know. He went into a whole spiel about it. It's like, dude, it's a shirt, and a normal looking shirt.
It was a nice looking shirt. Like, what?
Like, literally. Don't make a fuss about it. Wear it a few times, and then use it as a cleaning rag. Like, whatever. Like, there's so many other solutions to this. And what my biggest takeaway from this, besides just like he's kind of an inflexible butthole, is that like this is such an innocuous thing. It's such a low effort thing, right? Like, we've talked, like, it's silly, it's stupid.
It was not a big deal. Like, he made it this whole thing,
right? Exactly. And so basically all he needed to do was wear the shirt for an afternoon. That is the extent of his, like, the required commitment. He, like, all of the things he read into it, completely unnecessary. And so that, like, it was zero effort to like make joy happen, to like create camaraderie, and like
all the other guys are wearing it. It's not like you're the only one who had to wear the shirt,
right? And so that's like, I don't know, that was my biggest takeaways, like how it really reflects poorly on him, because even after she specifically told him, because like I feel like most people, well, first of all, most people would just wear the shirt.
Yes.
But for the segment of people who be like, oh, this just isn't my style, the overwhelming majority of those people, I feel like, would then, if the joke was explained to them, they would be like, oh, sorry, I was kind of a jerk about that. Yeah, I'll wear it and like be part of the joke. But he just leaned so hard into it. It's like,
and then he puts his wife in the awkward position of having to stand there while he like complains, and she's like, yeah, I had to tell him the whole secret just to get him to put it on
for 2 seconds.
Like, it's so awkward and embarrassing.
Yeah, they're not a good look, Mitch. You could have just kept your mouth shut and made everybody happy and brought everybody together, and instead you're just making things difficult.
And then it continued when they talked to the therapist, and he's like, I don't want other people deciding what I wear. Which, like, I get that, but this is like different.
Not that.
Yeah, this isn't a school uniform.
Right. But also, who cares? Like, you're in a marriage. Things happen. Like,
also, he says he doesn't want to be a pushover and compromise too much.
It's like, bro, you haven't compromised at all this whole time.
Yes. And it's not like wearing a shirt means you, like, he put too much on the shirt. Like, It's just a shirt.
But is it a sustainable shirt? Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's probably, like, got some polyester in
it. You know how it's like, polyester is a scourge, okay?
I mean, that's true. I don't like polyester shirts either.
And it's terrible, terrible, terrible for the environment. All right, you put polyester and other synthetic fibers in the wash, and it's always shedding plastics.
Yeah.
And polyester clothing is a huge reason why every human being at this point, including the unborn, have microplastics in their bloodstream. So,
wow,
I'm on Mitch's side now.
I feel like that's not even the reason he didn't want to wear it.
No, absolutely not. Like, that's what I'm saying is, if he could have scored a couple more points if he had actually had a reasonable objection to it based on his principles instead of just being a little baby.
Yeah. I love how the therapist asked Kristen, like, how do you feel seen? And she's like, yeah, I'm losing myself in this relationship, trying to be a version of myself that Mitch would like.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No, she's the one doing all the compromising.
Right, but then just in general, like, in a relationship, you can't just be spending all of your time trying to craft yourself into what you think the other person wants. That's so unproductive, and that's a burden. Mm-hmm. Not getting a gift to wear for the afternoon.
Such a wet blanket.
Oh, man.
A killjoy, buzzkill, just...
Wow, you're really good. You're leaning into the vocabulary here.
Oh, man. I think they're a no for me. Only because I hope Kristen is not still saddled with him.
Yeah, I think the general consensus of the internet is that regardless of whether or not it could be made to work through Kristen's effort, everybody wants her to find a different husband.
Oh, man. I sure hope so.
Man. Well, we have and if I forgot to say, I'm gonna say no. It's a no for me for now. Yeah. Lindy and Miguel?
Yeah.
So why is he hanging out with D&D guy again?
I don't know. I guess the point of this was so that his friend Steve could bring up Lindy's rant about the last names in the healthcare and how she's a wet blanket.
I don't know. I thought it was a little weird that his friend, which, can I just say, whenever they cut to that footage, it's just the most ridiculous thing, because it's Steve and the other lady sitting next to each other, and the lady's just in her grape costume.
I know. I love that costume so much.
She's just a freaking bunch of grapes.
What is the guy? What was he dressed as? It was green.
I have no idea. Every time she's like the lady bunch of grapes just sitting there listening to this. But yeah, I don't know. I struggle to see how they came to the conclusion to be so fully on Miguel's side. Like, I know it was like maybe not the most flattering thing to watch her go through that, but like, I don't know. It was just weird that he came out so much, especially coming out with the, like, calling her Jekyll and Hyde. Like, I don't.
It might have been a bit over the top. He also told him, don't turn off your red flag detector.
Yeah, this relationship has been weird the entire time for me. I just don't think that they are compatible.
Yeah, and she keeps, like, bringing up, like, I need Miguel to see my crazy side. Which, why? Why is this thing you keep, like, itching for it? Like, let me show him the absolute worst, so therefore, if he stays with me, I know he'll, like, really stay with me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the thought process, honestly, is that,
it's
like,
weird.
She wants to kind of get that out of the way.
She's like asking for trouble.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I think it's silly to think like that. But I can see, like, why she would do that. Like, I we have these 8 weeks here. I don't want to just try to pretend to be something I'm not, I guess. And so he needs to see the crazy side, which is just funny because she was talking about that later in the group date. And he was just kind of looking like, wait, I haven't seen your crazy side?
That was a funny expression on his face.
Because she is... Look, I don't know. I really am reluctant to describe it as crazy. Like, emotional is not crazy. Now is, like, hyper emotional hard to deal with sometimes? Yes. But I don't really like it being described in that terms, or in those terms. And maybe sometimes it does extend. Maybe it can extend to a crazy place, but just at face value, describing unregulated emotion as craziness, it doesn't really sit very well with me, because that's kind of, I know there's been a lot of that throughout history of, like, oh wow, you're such a crazy woman. It makes me a little uncomfortable.
She says she's also holding back out of respect.
Oh no. Yeah, he didn't look very comfortable, or, like, comforted to hear that.
No.
No, I don't know.
She's overthinking everything.
She's overthinking it, and I don't know. I think that part of that is in response to how he's acting, though, because he's been very non-committal.
That's true. Because they had a whole discussion about, like, grace and, like, the times you mess up, and he was saying, like, well, I don't think I'd stick around if all this bad stuff kept happening, and she's saying she would, but also grace isn't a bottomless pit, and so, like, there is a limit to it. It was,
yeah, they're just going around in circles with each other, because he doesn't want to commit because he wants things to be a certain way, and if they aren't, he wants to have his out and get out of there. She thinks she's a lot, which he is, and so she wants him to see that and still love her anyways, and be willing to give her grace through that. So it's just, I don't know, it's just strange to see, because, like, I mean, in some ways grace isn't infinite. Like, you probably, I say probably, but you shouldn't give infinite grace, for example, to a spouse who is just going out and repeatedly cheating on you, for example. But like the sorts of things where grace should not be infinite is way shorter than the list of things that grace should not be infinite for. So I don't know, he likes to, or at least seems to like to, like, qualify things. And I mean, I don't know if he's actually doing this, but she was talking about how, like, oh, are we just gonna keep score? And like, it's like, okay, well, Lindy has been a little cuckoo too many times. Goodbye, you know. And then, so that doesn't feel good to hear, I'm sure. So I think they're not in a great place.
Yeah, not at the moment. I still am gonna say yes though for them.
Really?
Yeah. I have a little bit of faith at this point.
I have no faith. I'm gonna say no. It's a no from me.
So our last couple is Morgan and Binh.
Oh boy.
So we saw them at mermaid school, which I guess was just let me take her on a date.
Well, I think actually this was Morgan's idea. Because I think she was the one who allegedly scheduled this.
Oh, that's right. He was just kind of going along with it.
Right, he was going along with it. This was her attempt at, I guess just the women generically said that she should, like, oh, like, you gotta like try to put down those walls, or like to go on a date, like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they go to mermaid school. It's really weird.
Yes, it was. I've never seen anything like this before.
Get to throw on mermaid tails and swim around in a pool.
I don't think I would have liked having my legs restricted like that, especially in a water.
I mean, I thought for you the pool was the primary issue.
Well, yes, that too, but not being able to use your legs to...
Well, you can use your legs. They're just together.
In a how do you think very unnatural way.
Look, you make sacrifices to be a mermaid, okay? Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was... See, man, why are they like how they are? Because this actually... If you had asked me halfway through this episode, Binh and Morgan, yes or no, I would have said yes. Because they really started trending in a positive direction here. You know, they had the mermaid lessons, which seemed to go over really well. I thought that the conversation they had at their apartment after the mermaid date was very good. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Would you like to talk about it? Tell me your observations here.
Yeah, he like gave some explanation for like the way he had treated her on the honeymoon, about things in his culture. I guess like the way he grew up kind of projecting onto her, which like wasn't her fault. Like he never got accepted by his dad, and like the only important thing was like being a doctor, or like what schooling and job you get. Yeah,
he actually said that his dad didn't love him.
Yeah, that's pretty awful.
Yeah, you know, I guess his dad was super young when he came over to the States, and he had an absent father as well, and like it just continued the chain. Yeah, I mean that really does suck quite significantly. And yeah, it seems like he's yet again. Everyone drags their trauma around, and it informs how they live their lives. But yeah, I mean that must be very, very tough, because he really feels that pressure of, not feeling like he's enough, and not having. I mean, and it's obviously like it's silly, like the man is a freaking engineer of some kind, like, but culturally feeling that pressure of needing to be like a doctor or a lawyer and not measuring up to that, like that's really tough. So what I really liked about this conversation is I thought it showed a lot of maturity on his part, because vulnerability is a really tough thing. And in some ways, like, especially like in a relationship context, but it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, like vulnerability a lot of the time prompts vulnerability. Like somebody has to take that step of, look, I'm going to show you this part of myself. I'm going to open myself up to potentially getting hurt by you because this stuff is like at my core. And doing that kind of leads by example in a lot of ways. And so I really liked that because it felt like he was giving Morgan an opportunity and an opening to be like, okay, it's all right to be vulnerable in this relationship. It's okay for me to not be okay and to like share those things. And I think it really did start to kind of bring down her walls for 15 minutes.
Yeah, it seemed to work. I mean, they had another conversation after they set off the fire alarm, cooking meat in the apartment.
Which, can I just say, I thought this was really sweet because she was at work all day, nursing her butt off, and he had this little like hot plate thing and made Korean barbecue for her as they sat on the floor in their living room directly under the smoke detector. Then, of course, they had to open all the windows and everything. But yes, please continue.
Yeah, I liked that too. He like shared like why he ended up being a people pleaser. He was, I guess, like the only Asian kid in his area. A lot of people made racist jokes, and so he felt he had to like overcompensate for that, overachieve.
Yeah, and be a people pleaser. Like he had to combat all that. He had to be like super nice.
Yeah. And she also said she was a people pleaser, but for a different reason. I guess because she was always trying to be good enough for her dad, and she finally realized nothing she did would ever be good enough for him. So I guess once she cut him out of her life, she started to heal.
Which I'm skeptical. I'm not totally convinced that she has healed.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that's fully complete.
I just think that for Morgan, she has compartmentalized and perhaps even like disassociated from all that stuff, which isn't really the same thing as healing.
Yeah, I'm guessing once she cut out her dad, it was kind of like, well, I've closed the book on that, and she's tried to move on.
Right, and I don't blame her. It's just that doesn't necessarily equate to healing. It just equates to I've put it in a toy chest in my mind and I won't go there. I know. We'll see, I guess, but
there wasn't much with them with the therapist. They said they were on the incline, so I guess getting better.
Yeah, heading in a more positive direction on the wheel of emotions. For 2 minutes, because Binh and Morgan are what looks to be the main theme of next episode.
Yeah, we got like the living room ceiling camera footage of them arguing about Binh is going behind her back and telling Alexis bad stuff.
Well, no, so apparently he was talking to Justin again. And so Alexis, because obviously, like, okay, if any of you run into Justin, never tell him a secret because he can't keep crap to himself to save his life. But yes, as I understood it, and we don't know what this was, what he told, like what Binh told Justin. We have no idea. But whatever that was, Justin then told to Alexis, and then Alexis
told
completed
Morgan.
the circle and told Morgan. And so Morgan is very angry.
Yeah, we see in the preview for next week, she like throws his flowers on the ground.
Yeah, and stomps away.
So I'm gonna say no for them based on that preview.
Yeah, I'm gonna say no as well. I did want to ask you here because this is something that I've been kind of struggling with in the context of all of this Binh and Morgan drama is like who first of all, like what is that line between needing to confide in someone and confiding in someone and just gossiping? Because I feel like that does affect the level of betrayal. But then also, like, who the heck else is he supposed to confide in?
I guess the experts. I mean, he could confide in Justin, but that should have been a conversation he had with Morgan. To be like, hey, can we discuss this sort of thing?
I guess it's tough because it's like, I don't know if I necessarily agree that he needs to just unilaterally get permission, because like,
well, I think it depends on what the thing is.
Right, we don't know what that is, but like,
if it's something like super personal that Morgan told him in confidence,
right? That's a potentially bad thing, but like, what if it was just sharing how he felt about something? Like, it just seems like there should be some wiggle room there, because like all of this isn't happening in a vacuum, and like he's feeling stuff too. Yeah. and has stuff to work through, and so it's like, if he's not going to Justin, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is if he's going to Justin to specifically talk about how he's feeling and how he's struggling, and not basically bringing Morgan's stuff into that, I don't really see a problem with that.
I mean, she said saying bad stuff about her, so I guess we don't really know what.
We'll see.
And also, he also could have done this safely if he had just convinced Justin not to go blabbing to Alexis.
It's just a weird situation, because I don't know, I thought that Binh was smarter than this too.
I know, because this is the same mistake he already made.
Right, which is why I'm like, well, is this actually a thing?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, is she getting upset for a true reason, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I mean, maybe we'll find out next week what the thing was.
I hope so.
It's hard to know without knowing that.
I feel bad for Binh at this point. Maybe I won't feel bad for him next week. But I feel bad at this point because, as we've talked about, this seems like kind of an isolating experience. And so it's an isolating experience, but also all of this turbulence is happening in these people's lives, and they've only been married for 3 weeks, so it's not super realistic necessarily to expect, oh, we're just going to talk this out as a couple directly, like maybe normal married people would. But even like normal married people have issues, and that's why like therapists exist and all this stuff, so that you have, somebody to confide in and work through issues. I don't know, it's just weird to me. This whole situation is weird, because seems like Binh is smart enough to not make this mistake a second time. But it seems to have happened again. But, what a disaster.
Yeah, they are kind of a disaster. So,
and just again, I thought we were finally moving in the right direction. It seemed like her walls were coming down a little bit, and we were getting to a good place. Apparently not, and I am very sad.